Commander Gregory sat in the communications room of Earth Defense Station Alpha, watching the routine traffic of galactic transmissions scroll across his screens. It was a quiet morning shift, the kind he had grown used to over the past 3 years. Most days brought nothing but trade reports and diplomatic chatter between the hundreds of species that made up the known galaxy. Earth was still new to this vast community, having joined only 15 years ago after humanity developed faster-than-light travel. Gregory sipped his coffee and glanced at the chronometer. His shift would end in 2 hours, and he planned to call his sister on New Haven Colony. She had moved there 5 years ago with her husband and 2 children. The colony was thriving, she always said. 10 billion humans now called that distant world home. It was humanity's greatest achievement beyond Earth itself. The alert tone made Gregory sit up straight. A priority signal was coming through on all galactic frequencies. That was unusual. Priority broadcasts were reserved for major announcements or emergencies. He routed the signal to his main screen and felt his blood run cold. The image showed massive warships in orbit above a blue and green planet. Gregory recognized it immediately. New Haven. His hands started shaking as he reached for the emergency communication panel. The ships were, everyone in the galaxy knew about the Empire. They controlled nearly a quarter of known space through brutal military force. Their ships were enormous, covered in weapons, painted in deep crimson that looked like dried blood. Humanity had tried to maintain peaceful relations with them, but they demanded submission. Earth had refused to bow to anyone. A face appeared on the screen. Supreme Chancellor of the Empire stared out with cold, reptilian eyes. His scaled skin was dark purple, and when he spoke, his voice carried the certainty of someone who had never been challenged. People of the galaxy, witness the price of defiance, said. The humans of Earth refused to acknowledge our rightful authority. They believed their primitive weapons and foolish pride would protect them. Today, we teach them the cost of such arrogance. Gregory wanted to look away, but he could not move. The view changed to show the surface of New Haven. Fighters screamed through the atmosphere, firing on cities below. Buildings exploded. People ran through the streets, trying to find shelter that did not exist. The broadcast showed everything in horrible detail. No, Gregory whispered, please no. But the slaughter continued. For 6 hours, the fleet methodically destroyed every city, every town, every settlement on New Haven. They hunted survivors with the efficiency of predators who enjoyed their work. The broadcast never stopped, narrated the destruction with pride, describing it as justice and punishment. Gregory watched his entire world collapse. Somewhere down there, his sister was dying, her husband, her children. His niece was only 8 years old. His nephew had just turned 5. They were all dying while he sat here, helpless, unable to do anything but watch. When it finally ended, 10 billion humans were dead. Every single colonist on New Haven had been exterminated. The ships remained in orbit, weapons still hot, as delivered his final message. Let this serve as an example to all who would defy the Empire, he said. Submit to our authority or face total annihilation. We grant Earth 1 rotation of their planet to surrender. If they refuse, they will suffer the same fate. The transmission ended. Gregory sat in silence, tears streaming down his face. The coffee cup had fallen from his hand at some point, spreading a brown stain across the floor. He did not notice. All he could see were the images burned into his mind. The running children, the collapsing buildings, the fires that consumed everything. Admiral Pierce burst through the door minutes later. She had clearly run from her office. Her uniform was disheveled and her face was pale. Gregory, I'm sorry, she said. I'm so sorry, I know your family was there. He looked at her with empty eyes. They're all gone, every single one. Helped him stand. Come with me, the president has called an emergency meeting. We need every senior officer. They made their way through the station's corridors. Other personnel stopped and stared. Everyone had seen the broadcast. The horror on their faces reflected Gregory's own feelings. Some were crying. Others looked angry. A few appeared to be in shock, unable to process what they had witnessed. The command center was packed when they arrived. President Daniel Carter stood at the head of the table, his jaw clenched tight. Dr. Blake was already there, along with every member of the military leadership. The room fell silent as Gregory entered. Sit down, all of you, Carter said. His voice was steady, but Gregory could hear the fury underneath. We have 23 hours before the deadline expires. They expect us to surrender. They think we'll beg for mercy after what they've done. "Mr. President," one of the generals said, "their fleet is massive. We can't match their numbers. If we fight, Earth itself could be destroyed." Carter's eyes were hard. "They murdered 10 billion of our people. They broadcast it for the entire galaxy to watch. They did this to terrorize us into submission." He placed both hands on the table and leaned forward. "I will not surrender to murderers. The question is not whether we fight, but how we fight." Dr. Blake activated a holographic display. "We have capabilities that don't know about. During our expansion into space, we kept certain technologies hidden. Our stealth systems are decades ahead of anything else in the galaxy. Our weapons research has produced results we never shared with the galactic community." "Why hide our strength?" another officer asked. "Because humanity learned long ago that showing all your cards makes you a target," Blake replied. "We remained peaceful, but we were never naive. We've been preparing for a threat like this since the day we left Earth." Admiral Pierce stepped forward. "We need to strike first and strike hard, show the galaxy that humanity won't be victims, show that they made a terrible mistake." Gregory found his voice. "I volunteer to lead the first attack. My family is dead because of them. Let me make them pay." Carter looked at him with understanding. "Commander, you'll have your chance, but this won't be about revenge. This will be about justice. We're going to dismantle the Empire piece by piece. When we're done, the galaxy will know that you cannot slaughter innocents without consequence." The room erupted in agreement. Plans began taking shape. Fleet assignments were made. Targets were selected. Earth's military machine shifted into full mobilization. As the meeting continued, Gregory felt something change inside him. The grief was still there, crushing and absolute, but alongside it grew something else. A cold, focused determination. The thought they had broken humanity's spirit. They had only awakened something far more dangerous. Earth would not surrender. Earth would not beg. Earth would show the galaxy what happened when you pushed humans too far. The war had begun, and it would not end until justice was served. 24 hours passed, and Earth made no official response. The deadline came and went in silence. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched and waited for humanity's surrender. It never came. Supreme Chancellor stood in his throne room surrounded by his advisors. They were celebrating what they believed was a complete victory. Humanity's silence could only mean one thing. They were paralyzed by fear. "The humans are broken," one advisor said. "They lack the courage to even respond to our demands." Nodded with satisfaction. "As expected, they are a young species, soft and weak. They have never known true power. Now they understand their place in the galaxy." But something else was happening that they did not see. Human ships were disappearing from every public space lane. Defense stations went dark. Trading vessels returned to Earth and did not leave again. It was as if humanity was pulling back, hiding, retreating from the galaxy entirely. Other alien species noticed. The Union, a group of smaller civilizations that lived under oppression, watched with growing concern. Ambassador Helen Cross of Earth had been meeting with them for months, building relationships. Now she was nowhere to be found. "Where are the humans?" a diplomat asked his colleagues. "They have gone silent, no transmissions, no ships, nothing." "Perhaps they truly are surrendering," another replied. "They destroyed their largest colony. What choice do they have?" But a few wondered if something else was happening, something the galaxy had not seen before. Commander Gregory sat in the pilot seat of the stealth ship Phantom, one of 50 vessels in his strike force. They had been traveling for 20 hours through a route that avoided all known sensor networks. Earth's quantum stealth technology made them invisible to every detection method the galaxy used. It was technology humanity had developed in secret, never showing it to anyone. Around him, the crew worked in silence. Every person on this mission had lost someone on New Haven. Some had lost their entire families. The desire for revenge burned in all of them, but Admiral Pierce had made the orders clear. This was not about mindless destruction. This was about sending a message. 5 minutes to target, the navigator said quietly. Gregory nodded and activated the fleet-wide communication channel. "All ships prepare for combat. Remember the mission. We hit fast, we hit hard, and we get out. No unnecessary risks. We have a long war ahead of us." 50 voices acknowledged the order. Gregory felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders. These people trusted him to lead them into battle. He would not fail them. Their target was High Command Station Nexus 7. a massive military installation that coordinated fleet movements across an entire sector. It housed 10,000 military personnel and served as a hub for 3 defense fleets. Intelligence suggested that some of the ships that attacked New Haven were stationed there. Good, Gregory thought. Let them die where they feel safest. The station appeared on sensors as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel. It was enormous, bristling with weapons and surrounded by hundreds of warships. Under normal circumstances, attacking such a target would be suicide, but nothing about this attack was normal. All ships engage stealth systems to maximum, Gregory ordered. Targeting solutions on station, primary reactor, and fleet command ships. Fire on my mark. The human ships glided forward like ghosts. The sensors saw nothing. Their ships continued their routine patrols, completely unaware that death had arrived. Gregory watched the targeting computer lock onto the station's critical systems. His finger hovered over the firing control. He thought of his sister's face, his niece's laugh, his nephew's smile. All gone, all murdered by these creatures. Fire, he said. 50 human ships opened fire simultaneously. Advanced plasma weapons, another secret Earth had kept hidden, tore through space at near-light speed. The shields, designed to stop conventional weapons, might as well have been made of paper. The station's main reactor exploded first, creating a chain reaction that ripped through the entire structure. Command ships tried to raise their shields, but it was already too late. Human weapons punched through hulls, detonated power cores, and vaporized crew sections. The 3 defense fleets began to break apart before they even understood they were under attack. It lasted less than 3 minutes. When the firing stopped, Nexus 7 was a cloud of expanding debris. The 3 fleets were gone. 10,000 soldiers were dead. Gregory activated the emergency broadcast frequency, the same one that had used to show New Haven's destruction. He wanted everyone in the galaxy to hear this. "This is Commander Gregory of the United Earth Defense Force," he said. His voice was calm, almost cold. "The Empire murdered 10 billion humans in an act of terrorism. They believed we would submit to their threats. They were wrong. This attack is the first of many. For every human life taken, we will extract payment. 10 billion demands 10 billion. This war will not end until justice is served." He cut the transmission and ordered the fleet to retreat. They jumped back into faster-than-light travel before any reinforcements could arrive. The mission was complete. Across the galaxy, the message was received. Species that had lived in fear of them for centuries suddenly saw them differently. They were not invincible. They could be hurt. They could be killed. The Supreme Chancellor watched the footage of Nexus 7's destruction with growing rage. How had the humans done this? Where had they gotten such advanced weapons? Why had no one detected them? "Find them," he roared at his military commanders. "Find every human ship and destroy them. I want them reduced to ash." His advisors scrambled to obey. The Grand Armada, consisting of 3,000 warships, began mobilizing. It was the largest military force the galaxy had seen in a generation. Surely no species could stand against such power. The Armada set course for Earth's solar system. Intelligence reported that the human was lightly defended. Commander's attack force was still far away. This was the perfect opportunity to end the war with overwhelming force. Himself would command the fleet. He would personally oversee Earth's destruction. The humans would learn what it meant to defy the Empire. Admiral Pierce stood in Earth Defense Command, watching the reports come in. The Armada was 8 hours away. Scouts confirmed the size of the fleet. 3,000 ships, all heavily armed, all commanded by the same creature who had orchestrated New Haven's massacre. President Carter stood beside her. "They think we're defenseless," he said. "Good," replied. "Let them think that. Dr. Blake, are the defense systems ready?" Blake nodded from her station. "Every platform is armed and online. The solar system is ready. They're going to fly into the most sophisticated defensive network humanity has ever built." "And they have no idea it exists," Carter added. Allowed herself a small smile. "They are about to learn an important lesson. You never attack a human's home, not without paying a price that makes victory meaningless." She opened a communication channel to all defense stations throughout the solar system. Hidden bases on Mars, weapon platforms disguised as asteroids, automated defense drones positioned at every strategic point. Humanity had spent decades turning their home system into a fortress. The galaxy had never known about it because Earth saw no reason to advertise their capabilities. "All units, this is Admiral Pierce," she said. "The enemy is coming. When they arrive, show them what happens when you threaten Earth. Show them why humans survived every challenge our planet threw at us. Show them why we're still here." 3,000 voices acknowledged the order, looked at the tactical display showing the approaching fleet. They were coming in a standard formation, confident and arrogant. They expected an easy victory. They were about to be very disappointed. "Mr. President," said, "would you like to send them a welcoming message?" Carter nodded and activated the long-range transmission system. His message would reach the fleet in minutes. "Supreme Chancellor," he said, his voice carrying across the void of space, "you murdered our people. You threatened our world. You thought we would beg for mercy. Instead, we invite you to try and take what you think you can claim. Welcome to hell." Armada emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 3,000 warships appeared in perfect formation, their crimson hulls gleaming in the distant light of the sun. On the flagship, Supreme Chancellor stood on the command bridge, savoring what he believed would be his greatest victory. "Scan the system," he ordered. "Locate all human defensive positions." The sensor officer worked for several minutes before reporting. "Supreme Chancellor, I detect minimal defenses. A few orbital stations around the third planet, some scattered ships, nothing that could threaten our fleet." Smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "The humans are even weaker than I thought. Open a channel to their planet." President Daniel Carter appeared on the communication screen. He stood in Earth Defense Command, surrounded by military officers. His expression was calm, almost relaxed. That annoyed. The human should be terrified. "You received my message?" Carter asked. "Your pathetic threat?" laughed. "I am here with 3,000 warships. Where's your mighty fleet? Where are your weapons? I see nothing but a defenseless world waiting to die." Carter's smile was cold. "You're looking in the wrong places. You should check closer to your fleet." Felt a flicker of concern. "What are you talking about?" "Goodbye, Chancellor," Carter said, and the screen went dark. Alarms started blaring across every ship simultaneously. Sensor contacts were appearing everywhere. Hundreds of them. No, thousands. Weapon platforms hidden on asteroids came online. Bases on Mars and the Moon activated their systems. Automated drones that had been drifting in space like debris suddenly powered up and targeted the nearest vessels. "Defensive formation," screamed. "Raise shields, return fire." But the humans had planned this trap perfectly. The fleet had entered the solar system in a tight formation, confident in their superiority. Now they were bunched together, unable to maneuver without colliding with their own ships. The defensive platforms opened fire from multiple angles, creating overlapping kill zones. Admiral Pierce watched the battle unfold from Earth Command. The tactical display showed the solar system like a three-dimensional chessboard, and every piece was hers to command. "Focus fire on their capital ships," she ordered. "Take out their command structure first. I want flagship disabled but intact. We're taking him alive." Dr. Blake monitored the weapon systems. The plasma cannons humanity had developed were performing beyond expectations. They bypassed shields through a combination of frequency modulation and sheer power. Each shot that hit meant a dead ship. "Their formation is breaking," Blake reported. "They're trying to scatter, but they keep running into more defensive positions." "Good," said. "That's exactly what we want. Let them panic. Panicked enemies make mistakes." On the flagship, chaos reigned. Watched as his grand armada tore itself apart. Ships collided while trying to avoid human fire. Weapons meant to destroy Earth were instead shooting wildly, sometimes hitting other vessels. The humans had turned the solar system into a death trap, and his forces had walked right into it. "How many have we lost?" he demanded. The tactical officer's face was pale. "Over 1,000 ships, Supreme Chancellor, and the number is rising. We need to retreat." "No," slammed his fist on the command console. "We outnumber them. Keep fighting." But even as he gave the order, he knew it was hopeless. The humans were not fighting like any enemy they had ever faced. They used hit-and-run tactics, striking from unexpected positions and disappearing before retaliation could arrive. They exploited every weakness in doctrine with surgical precision. Commander Gregory brought his strike force into the battle from behind the fleet. His 50 ships had been waiting at the outer edge of the system, letting the defensive platforms do their work. Now it was time to close the trap. "All ships target the rear guard," he ordered. "Don't give them any escape route. Anyone who tries to run goes through us." The human stealth ships dropped their cloaking and opened fire. Ships that had been trying to flee suddenly found themselves under attack from a new direction. The rear of the formation collapsed as vessels tried desperately to avoid the concentrated firepower. Gregory saw's flagship on his sensors. The massive ship was heavily damaged, its engines failing. Perfect. He opened a direct communication channel to the leader. "Supreme Chancellor," he said, "I am Commander Gregory. My sister lived on New Haven. So did her husband and their 2 children. You murdered them while broadcasting it to the galaxy. Now I'm going to return the favor." His face appeared on the screen, twisted with rage and fear. "You cannot defeat the Empire. There are thousands of our ships across the galaxy. Even if you win here, we will destroy you." "Maybe," Gregory replied, "but you won't live to see it. Your flagship is disabled, your fleet is destroyed, and you're about to become a prisoner of war. I want you to live long enough to face justice for what you did." He cut the transmission and ordered his ships to surround the flagship. Vessels that tried to defend it were blown apart. Within minutes, boarding teams secured the ship and captured everyone on board, including Supreme Chancellor himself. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, 2/3 of the armada was destroyed. The remaining ships fled in disorder, abandoning their Supreme Chancellor and their wounded. They jumped into faster-than-light travel without coordination, scattering across multiple star systems. Earth had won the greatest military victory in human history. The solar system was littered with debris, but Earth itself was untouched. Not a single human defensive position had fallen. The casualties among Earth's forces were minimal. Admiral Pierce addressed all military personnel across the solar system. "Outstanding work, everyone. We have proven that humanity cannot be intimidated. We have shown the galaxy that attacking Earth is a fatal mistake. But this war is not over. The Empire still controls hundreds of worlds. They still oppress billions of innocent beings. Our mission continues." She paused, then added, "And we have a very special prisoner who is going to answer for his crimes." President Carter contacted the Galactic Council, an organization of over 100 species that attempted to maintain order in known space. The Council had been silent during New Haven's destruction, too afraid of it to speak out. "Members of the Council," Carter said, "humanity has defeated the Grand Armada in our home system. We have captured Supreme Chancellor. He will stand trial for war crimes against humanity and against every other species they have terrorized. We invite all civilizations to witness this trial. Let the galaxy see that no one is above justice." The message spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Species that had cowered before the suddenly found courage. Resistance movements on occupied worlds began to hope. The Empire, which had seemed invincible for centuries, had just suffered its first major defeat. In a cell deep beneath Earth Defense Command, sat alone. His scaled skin was bruised, his expensive robes torn. Guards watched him constantly. He could hear the celebrations outside as humanity marked their victory. Commander stood outside the cell, looking through the transparent barrier, glared at him with hatred. "You cannot win," they said. "Even with me captured, the Empire is vast. Our military governors will continue the fight. They will destroy everything you love." Gregory's expression did not change. "Then we'll deal with them too. One by one if necessary. You made a mistake, Chancellor. You thought murdering innocents would make us afraid. Instead, you taught us exactly who you are. And now the galaxy is learning the same lesson." He turned to leave, then looked back. "The trial starts tomorrow. I hope you're ready to face the families of everyone you killed. I hope you're ready to hear them tell you what you took from them, because that's all you have left now, the judgment of your victims." Gregory walked away, leaving alone with his thoughts. For the first time in his long life, the Supreme Chancellor of the Empire felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Above Earth, the defense stations remained on alert. Repair crews worked to fix damaged platforms, medical teams tended to the wounded, but there was also celebration. Humanity had faced their greatest test and emerged victorious. Admiral Pierce stood in her office, looking out at the stars. Dr. Blake joined her, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "We won," Blake said. "Against impossible odds, we won." "This battle," replied. "Not the war. The Empire is wounded but not dead. They'll try again, maybe with even more force. Then we'll beat them again, Blake said confidently. Today proved that human ingenuity and the trial of Supreme Chancellor began 3 days after his capture. President Daniel Carter had chosen to hold it before the Galactic Council, broadcasting every moment to civilizations across known space. He wanted everyone to see what justice looked like. The council chamber on the neutral station Alpha Prime was packed with representatives from hundreds of species. Some came to support Earth. Others came out of curiosity. A few came because they secretly hoped to see the humiliated. The chamber fell silent as guards brought in, bound and stripped of his symbols of power. Carter stood at the podium, addressing the assembly. Members of the council, we are here to witness the trial of the being responsible for the murder of 10 billion humans. But this is not just about humanity's loss. Dr. Blake has compiled evidence of similar atrocities committed by the Empire across centuries. Blake activated a holographic display. Images appeared showing dozens of worlds they had conquered. Populations enslaved or exterminated, resources stripped away, cultures destroyed. The evidence was overwhelming and horrifying. The Empire has operated through terror for generations, Blake continued. They attacked New Haven to make an example of humanity. Instead, they have given us the opportunity to make an example of them, to show the galaxy that such actions will not be tolerated. A diplomat stood, his voice shaking with emotion. My people have lived under rule for 200 years. They took our freedom, our dignity, our future. We have been waiting for someone strong enough to stand against them. Earth has given us hope. Other voices joined in. Species from across the galaxy came forward to testify about crimes. The list grew longer and longer. Sat through it all, his expression defiant. He showed no remorse, no acknowledgement of the suffering he had caused. Finally, Carter asked if he had anything to say in his own defense. The former Supreme Chancellor stood, his chains rattling. I regret nothing, he said. The strong dominate the weak. That is the law of the universe. Humanity interfered with the natural order. I sought to correct that mistake. If given the chance, I would do it again. The chamber erupted in angry shouts. Carter let them continue for a moment before calling for silence. Then you leave us no choice, he said. Supreme Chancellor, you are found guilty of crimes against sentient beings. The sentence is death. Commander will carry out the execution in 24 hours. The trial ended, was taken back to his cell, but the work was only beginning. Earth had made a promise, and President Carter intended to keep it. Admiral Pierce assembled the largest military operation in human history. Ships from Earth's defense fleet combined with vessels that had been hidden in reserve. The goal was clear: dismantle the Empire completely. We're not conquerors, she told her officers. We're liberators. Every world we reach, we free. Every military installation we find, we destroy. But we do not harm civilians. We do not become the monsters we're fighting against. Commander Gregory led the first liberation fleet. His target was the colony of a world where millions of enslaved lived and worked in mining operations. Intelligence suggested the military governor there was preparing to execute the slaves rather than let them be freed. We need to move fast, Gregory told his team during the mission briefing. Every hour we wait is another hour those people suffer. We hit the garrison hard, neutralize their weapons, and secure the slave compounds before they can harm anyone. The fleet jumped into the system and immediately engaged the defense forces. The battle was brief and decisive. Human ships had proven their superiority at Earth, and they had no answer for humanity's advanced weapons and tactics. Gregory personally led the ground assault on the main garrison. His troops moved through the facility with practiced efficiency, stunning guards and securing weapons. They found the military governor in his command center, preparing to activate a bomb that would collapse the mines with the slaves still inside. Stop, Gregory shouted, his weapon aimed at the head. The governor's hand hovered over the activation button. You think you've won? You think you can stop the Empire? We are everywhere. For every world you free, 10 more remain under our control. Then I guess we'll free those too, Gregory said. Step away from the console now. The governor lunged for the button, but Gregory was faster. A single shot dropped before he could complete the action. The bomb was disarmed seconds later. Outside, the freed slaves emerged into daylight for the first time in years. Some fell to their knees and wept. Others stared at their human liberators with disbelief. An elderly approached Gregory, his body marked with scars from decades of forced labor. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you risk your lives for us? We are not your people." Gregory thought of New Haven, of his sister and her family. "Because no one deserves to suffer the way you have, because we know what it's like to lose everything, because if we don't stand up for others, we're no better than The liberation of was the first of many. Across space, human fleets struck military targets with surgical precision. They coordinated with resistance movements on occupied worlds, providing weapons and support. The empire began to fracture as governors fought each other for control and subject populations rose up in rebellion. Ambassador Helen Cross worked tirelessly to build alliances. She met with leaders from dozens of species, offering Earth support and friendship. She emphasized that humanity sought no territory, no tribute, no submission. They wanted only peace and justice. "Join us," she told a council of nervous alien diplomats. "Help us build a galaxy where strength protects the weak instead of exploiting them, where species cooperate instead of dominate. Earth offers this freely with no strings attached." One by one, civilizations agreed. The Union was the first to form an official alliance with Earth. Others followed. A new power structure was emerging in the galaxy, one built on cooperation rather than fear. On Earth, the execution of was carried out as promised. Commander stood before the former Supreme Chancellor in a secured chamber. Representatives from every species that had suffered under rule were present as witnesses. "Any last words?" Gregory asked. Glared at him with pure hatred. "The Empire will survive. You cannot kill an idea with bullets and ships. There will always be those who believe the strong should rule." "Maybe," Gregory replied, "but there will also always be those who fight against that idea, who stand up for the innocent, who choose justice over power. Today, justice wins." The execution was swift and final. Died as he had lived, defiant and unrepentant. But his death marked the symbolic end of the Empire's reign of terror. President Carter addressed the Galactic Council again that evening. "Supreme Chancellor is dead. His empire is falling, but our work is not finished. There are still military forces scattered across many systems. There are still worlds living in oppression. Earth commits to continuing this campaign until every being is free." He paused, then added, "However, we have received disturbing intelligence. He is developing a doomsday weapon, a device capable of destroying Earth if they believe their civilization is doomed. We must act carefully. If we push too hard, they might use it." Dr. Blake appeared on the screen beside him. "We are working on countermeasures, but developing them takes time. The weapon uses technology we have never seen before. It harnesses the power of a star itself." Admiral Pierce spoke next. "We are planning an operation to neutralize this threat. It will be our most dangerous mission yet. But we cannot allow them to threaten Earth again. We will strike at there and disable the weapon before they can use it." Across the galaxy, species held their breath. The war that had started with the massacre of New Haven was approaching its final chapter. Humanity had proven they could fight. They had proven they could win. But could they show mercy when victory was in their grasp? Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the star charts showing the route to the. His crew was ready. His ships were armed. He had the power to inflict the same suffering on that they had inflicted on New Haven. The combined fleet approached with caution. Commander Gregory commanded the largest force Earth had ever assembled. Beside him flew ships from the Union and a dozen other species that had joined humanity's cause. Together, they represented a new kind of power in the galaxy. Not conquest, but liberation. They appeared on sensors. It was a beautiful planet with purple oceans and green continents. Billions of lived on its surface, most of them civilians who had never left their world. They were not soldiers. They were not responsible for New Haven's destruction, but they were about to pay the price for their government's crimes. Unless Gregory chose differently. "Sensors detect the doomsday weapon," reported the tactical officer. "It's located on the southern continent, buried deep underground. The weapon is operational and appears to be charging." Dr. Blake worked frantically at her station. She had been developing countermeasures for the weapon during the entire journey. "I can disrupt the power flow," she said, "but I need to get close, very close. We're talking about a ground team insertion while under fire." Admiral Pierce watched from Earth Command, connected by communication link. "Commander, you have authorization to use whatever force is necessary to neutralize that weapon, but remember your orders. Minimize civilian casualties. This ends today, but it ends the right way. Gregory nodded and opened a channel to the entire fleet. All ships, we are going in. Strike teams will target the Doomsday weapon while our main force engages their defense fleet. Remember, we are here to stop a threat, not to punish innocents. Hold your fire on civilian targets. That is a direct order. The fleet moved forward. Defense forces rose to meet them, but they were a shadow of the armada that had attacked Earth. Most of their best ships had been destroyed. Most of their experienced commanders were dead or captured. What remained was brave but outmatched. The space battle was fierce but short. Human ships and their allies carved through the defenses with practiced efficiency. Gregory led his personal strike force toward the planet's surface, dodging fire from ground-based weapons. Atmospheric entry in 30 seconds, his pilot announced. It's going to be rough. The ship shook violently as it entered the atmosphere. Outside, fighters tried to intercept them, but human escort ships kept them at bay. Gregory's transport landed near the weapon facility, its ramp dropping before the engines even powered down. "Go, go, go!" Gregory shouted, leading his team out into enemy fire. Soldiers defended their position desperately. They knew if the weapon was destroyed, there would be defenseless. Gregory and his team fought their way through the outer defenses, using tactics and technology superior to anything they possessed. Dr. Blake ran beside him, protected by 2 soldiers. She carried the device that would disable the Doomsday weapon. All they had to do was reach the main control room. They breached the facility's inner sanctum after 20 minutes of intense fighting. The control room was massive, filled with strange technology that pulsed with barely contained energy. At its center stood the weapon's chief engineer, a female who looked at them with defiance. "You cannot stop it," she said. "The weapon is already charging. In 10 minutes it will fire. Your Earth will become a lifeless rock. You may win this battle, but you will lose your world." Blake ran to the control panel, her fingers flying over alien interfaces. "She's not bluffing," she said. "The weapon is in its final countdown. I need 3 minutes to shut it down." Gregory pointed his weapon at the engineer. "Tell me how to stop it manually, now." The engineer laughed bitterly. "Why would I help you? You destroyed our empire, you killed our supreme chancellor. You have taken everything from us. At least we can take your world in return." Gregory lowered his weapon. "Your empire murdered 10 billion of my people. I lost my sister, her husband, their children. I have every reason to hate you, every reason to let your world burn, but I'm not going to do that, because that's not justice, that's just more killing." He gestured around the facility. "How many live on this planet? Billions. And how many of them ordered the attack on New Haven? How many of them even knew about it before it happened? Should they die for the crimes of their leaders?" The engineer stared at him, confused. "You are in a position of absolute power. You could destroy us. Why would you show mercy?" "Because we're better than you," Gregory said simply. "Because Earth learned long ago that revenge only creates more suffering. Because if we destroy your world, we become exactly what you were. And I won't let that happen." Blake's hands never stopped moving. 2 minutes, I'm close." The engineer watched Gregory for a long moment, then slowly moved to a secondary console. "There is a manual override," she said quietly. "It requires both of us to activate it simultaneously. The designer feared someone might try to use the weapon without proper authority." Gregory nodded. "Blake, step back, we'll do it manually." He and the engineer worked together, their hands moving in coordination. The countdown slowed, stopped. The weapon's power core began to cycle down. The facility's lights dimmed as the massive energy buildup dissipated harmlessly into the planet's core. "It's done," the engineer said. She looked at Gregory with something like wonder. "You could have let us fire. You could have used it as justification to destroy our entire civilization. Why didn't you?" "Because that's not who we are," Gregory replied. "Now surrender your facility. The war is over." Above the planet, the defense fleet stopped fighting. Ships began broadcasting surrender signals. The centuries-old empire had finally fallen. President Daniel Carter addressed both Earth and the. His message was broadcast across every known frequency. "The war is over," he said. "The military command has surrendered. The Doomsday weapon has been disabled. No more blood will be spilled today." He paused, looking directly into the camera. To the people I say this, your leaders committed atrocities in your name. They murdered innocents. They ruled through terror. But you are not your leaders. Earth will not punish you for their crimes. Carter's voice grew stronger. However, there will be changes. The military will be dismantled. War criminals will face justice. Your worlds will be overseen by a galactic peacekeeping force until a new government can be established. But your people will be protected. Your culture will be preserved. Your children will have a future. Although billions watched in disbelief, they had expected extermination. Instead, they were being offered a chance at redemption. Admiral Pierce coordinated the occupation with representatives from allied species. Military installations were secured, weapons were confiscated, but civilian areas were left untouched. Human soldiers distributed food and medical supplies to citizens who had been hoarding supplies in fear. Ambassador Helen Cross led the effort to establish a new galactic council. This time, it would have real authority to prevent atrocities. Every member species would have a voice. Decisions would be made through consensus, not force. We have a chance to build something better, she told the assembled delegates. A galaxy where disputes are resolved through dialogue, where the strong protect the weak, where no species lives in fear of annihilation. The Union was the first to endorse the new order. Within weeks, dozens of other civilizations joined. Even some supported it, tired of their empire's endless conflicts. Commander Gregory stood at the memorial on Earth dedicated to the 10 billion dead of New Haven. The names were carved into a massive wall that stretched for miles. He found his sister's name and those of her family. He placed his hand on the cold stone. "We did it," he said quietly. "We got justice, not revenge but real justice. The galaxy is changing because of what happened to you. I hope that means something. I hope it was worth the price." He felt a hand on his shoulder. Dr. Blake stood beside him, looking at the endless list of names. "It was worth it," she said. "Not because we destroyed but because we proved that humanity can be better. We had the power to become monsters, and we chose not to. That's the real victory." Gregory nodded slowly. "I'm retiring from active service. I've done enough fighting. Maybe it's time to help build instead of destroy." "The galaxy could use more builders," Blake agreed. Across human space, similar conversations were happening. Soldiers returned home, families mourned their dead, but there was also hope. The galaxy had changed fundamentally. The old order of empires and conquest was dying. A new era of cooperation was beginning. President Carter stood in his office, looking at reports from across known space. The territories were stabilizing. New governments were forming. Trade was resuming. Life was returning to normal, or at least a new version of normal. Admiral Pierce entered with the latest intelligence reports. "The last military holdouts have surrendered," she said. "We've accounted for every major weapon system. The galaxy is at peace for the first time in centuries." Carter allowed himself a rare smile. "And it only took the worst massacre in human history to achieve it. Sometimes I wonder if there was another way." "There probably was," Pierce admitted. "But we'll never know. What matters is what we do now. We have the opportunity to shape the future. Let's make sure it's a future worth having." She placed a document on his desk. "The new Galactic Council is requesting Earth's leadership in the peacekeeping initiative. They want us to guarantee the security of smaller species, to prevent another empire from rising." Carter read through it carefully. "That's a lot of responsibility. We'd be committing to defending civilizations we barely know." "We would," Pierce agreed. "But isn't that what we've been doing all along? New Haven was attacked because we refused to bow to tyranny. We fought back not just for revenge, but to protect others from the same fate. This is just making it official." Carter signed the document. "Then we accept. Earth will be the shield for those who cannot protect themselves, but we must always remember why we're doing this. Not for power, not for territory, for justice." On New Haven's ruins, construction crews began the long process of rebuilding. A new colony would rise from the ashes. Settlers volunteered by the thousands, determined to honor the dead by creating new life. The planet would never forget what happened there, but neither would it remain a tomb. Commander visited the construction site during its early phases. He walked through the area where his sister's home had stood. There was nothing left but scorched earth and fading memories. A young worker approached him. "Commander, I wanted to thank you. My parents died here. You avenged them. You made sure their deaths meant something." Gregory shook his head. I didn't avenge anyone, I just made sure it wouldn't happen again. There's a difference. Is there? The worker asked. You destroyed the empire that killed them. That sounds like revenge to me. Revenge would have been destroying Gregory explained. Killing their civilians like they killed ours. I could have done that. Part of me wanted to, but that would have made their deaths meaningless. It would have said that the only lesson we learned was how to hate better. He looked at the construction equipment preparing the ground for new buildings. This is what their deaths meant. A new chance. A better galaxy. A future where no one has to watch their loved ones die while the rest of the galaxy does nothing. The worker thought about that for a moment, then nodded. Then I'll help build it for them. Gregory smiled. That's the best way to honor them, build something they would have been proud of. He left New Haven feeling lighter than he had in months. The weight of command was gone. The burden of revenge was lifted. All that remained was the work of building a better tomorrow. Back on Earth, President Carter stood before the Planetary Assembly, delivering his annual address. The past year has tested humanity like never before, he said. We faced annihilation, we endured genocide, we fought a war across half the galaxy, and we won. He paused, looking at the assembled representatives. But our greatest victory was not in battle. It was in the choice we made when we had absolute power over our enemies. We chose justice over vengeance. We chose construction over destruction. We chose to be better. The assembly erupted in applause. Carter let it continue for a moment before raising his hand for silence. Now comes the hard part, he continued. Now we must maintain that choice every single day. When it would be easier to dominate, we must cooperate. When it would be simpler to conquer, we must protect. When revenge calls to us, we must remember what we learned, that true strength is shown in restraint. He closed with words that would be remembered for generations. The galaxy will always remember the 10 billion who died on New Haven, but let them also remember the billions more who were saved because humanity refused to become monsters. Let that be our legacy. Not the destruction we inflicted, but the mercy we showed. Not the empire we conquered, but the peace we built. The message resonated across Earth and beyond. In the ruins of the empire, new governments quoted those words as they built constitutions. On liberated worlds, former slaves carved them into monuments. Across the galaxy, species both old and young looked to humanity as an example of what was possible. The war that began with a massacre ended with hope. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what 10 billion dead had demanded. Not revenge, but change. Not more suffering, but lasting peace. Their sacrifice had not been in vain. The new order was born from their ashes, built by those who survived, and protected by those who refused to forget what happened when justice was ignored. The galaxy was learning, and humanity was teaching, not through force but through example. The lesson was simple but profound. The greatest power is not the ability to destroy, but the wisdom to show mercy when destruction would be easy. Earth had learned that lesson the hard way. Now they would spend the rest of their existence making sure no one else had to learn it the same way. But was that justice, or would it make him no better than? He thought about his sister, about her children, about the 10 billion dead. They deserved justice, but what form should that justice take? The answer would come soon. The fleet was preparing for the final assault. The waited, and the fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. Gregory closed his eyes and made a silent promise to his sister's memory. Whatever happened next, he would make sure it meant something. He would make sure her death, and the deaths of all those on New Haven, led to a better galaxy. Not through revenge, but through real change. The war was almost over. One way or another, it would end at the can overcome any advantage in numbers. Nodded slowly. I just hope the galaxy is paying attention, because we're about to change everything. No more empires built on terror. No more innocent species living in fear. Starting tomorrow, we show them what real justice looks like. They drank their coffee in silence, watching the debris from the fleet drift past Earth's moon. It was a reminder of what they had accomplished, and a warning of what was still to come for. The transmission ended. Earth prepared for war.